Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So in this video we're going to be covering bullish engulfing candles, what they generally mean, as well as the obvious fact that Ethereum has been crushing the market. What does that mean for HEX relative to this sort of dance that HEX and Ethereum have been playing over the past 1.5 years? A little bit of insight into that. So remember, if you like this kind of hybrid quantitative and technical analysis, leave a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel by the end of the video if you haven't already, and let's go ahead and analyze these charts. Okay, so recently we had a live stream actually with LookIntoCrypto. Even though the live stream was 2 hours long, we actually talked off stream for about an hour afterwards. Super interesting guy to talk to, so I would encourage you to check out that video. I'll leave a card right here so you can check that out. So if you haven't already, go ahead and check that out. Subscribe to him. Great content. He's going to be pushing out some more content soon, he said, so be on the lookout for that. Okay, so recently we closed the weekly candle, right? This happened less than 24 hours ago, and it's significant for a few reasons. Because if you look at the history of the chart, and I'll start plotting them right now, actually talked to LookIntoCrypto about this, and it's this fact right here that we've only ever had a few bullish engulfing candles on the chart, right? And what does a bullish engulfing candle mean? It essentially means that, let's look at this here. It essentially means that the entirety of the span of this candle completely engulfs the span of the prior candle. So if you can see this candle right here, it went from a low of 228 to a high of 269, right? And this candle has a lower low, but also a higher high. Okay, so these are generally bullish candles that can indicate, they can be indicative of a trend reversal, right? It essentially means you had your volatility, you probably had your capitulation clearly here, for example, on March of 2020. We had our capitulation, but then it had a sharp V-shaped recovery if you zoom in up here to the 3.3 region or so. So about a 2 or 3x in just this candle alone. So it signifies a trend reversal via volatility as well as V-shaped recovery. That's kind of the psychology that goes into a bullish engulfing candle, right? So if you can notice here, we had one March 2020. We didn't have one for a full, 6 months until September 2020, where again, you get a bullish engulfing candle. And notice what happened every single time, right? After this bullish engulfing candle from the bottom of the wick to the top, that was our good old 50x that we all know and love, right, in the HEX price chart. After the September 14th bullish engulfing candle, we had a 7x. So granted, not a 50x, right, but we did have a 7x, which is nothing to scoff at, right? It's still some really interesting, or not interesting, but some really great returns, okay? And if you look at this last one, if you just calculate from bottom of this wick to top of this local peak, well, what is it? About a 3.8x or so. So almost a 4x. And we recently had another one. There are certain models out there that speculate that we could be seeing a fractal of over here just because we're testing new all-time highs, and a lot of these, we see a lot of similarities, right? Like if you remember the monthly chart analysis we did at the end of the monthly close, this was looking like a bearish candle. It was the April one. It was looking more so like this one, but we actually pumped near the end of the month, so we got kind of this. I mean, you could call this an indecision candle, just because the candle is really small and near the middle of top and bottom of this wick, of these wicks. So it's kind of interesting. It's just like a stalling out candle. It's an indecision candle. It's self-explanatory, right? It doesn't indicate a trend reversal like something like this would, even though, trend reversal didn't happen after. So again, different candles aren't always indicative. They're not always predictive, okay? So let's go back to our weekly chart because I want to focus on this idea of bullish engulfing candles. 50x, 7x, almost 4x, okay? So could we see, a 3x, a 2x from here? I think it's likely because we have had a bullish engulfing candle, and if you look at it, it's almost at a 2x already. Could it go higher? I think so. Remember, our technical target for our bull flag was 3 pennies, and it's still on track to hit that, okay? Funny enough, if you zoom in a little more, someone pointed this out to me, it looks like you have a mini bull flag on the 4-hour chart. So if you were to, measure from there to there and assume that we have, from here we might have some sort of pennant, for example. It looks like it's kind of forming already. Let's just say price were to do something like this and we broke out of our bull flag, we form a bull flag, right? What I found interesting is that this mini bull flag that's still forming, mind you, it's not guaranteed obviously, but if it were to form, this is pure speculation, then this mini bull flag would have a target of about 3 cents, just like our macro bull flag that we've touched on many times. I'm not going to draw it again here. It's essentially this move repeated over again here at this breakout, right? So both bull flags converge on about a 3 penny hex, which I found really interesting. And that would again coincide with, look, we've had our bullish engulfing candle, so we'll have a minimum of a 4x rally. Historically is what we've had, is a minimum of a 4x rally. So again, not saying it's going to happen, but historically speaking, bullish engulfing candles have only been good news. Okay, and what I find kind of interesting is that this bullish engulfing candle was, it was still almost a 2x away from recent all-time highs. Same with this bullish engulfing candle. It was about a 2 or 3x away from previous all-time highs. This one, same deal, about a 2 to 3x away from recent all-time highs. This one has been about a 2x away, was at the minimum a 2x away from all-time highs, and now we're coming up to test all-time highs. So every time we break all-time highs, it's generally a good sign, right, in any asset. Okay, so without ranting too much on this front, I did want to touch on a few other things. So we looked at our bull flags, we looked at our bullish engulfing candles, and let's look over here. Okay, so this is actually dex.vision, right? I've been mainly looking at Uniswap v2. However, this only has ETH liquidity. It's HEX ETH liquidity, whereas the majority of the liquidity for HEX is actually on the USDC pair. So I think we're going to start looking at dex.vision from now on for recent data. So if we're looking at, for example, daily data or lower than that, so daily, 12, 6, 4 hour, even hourly, it's kind of a low time frame, right? But if we are looking at that kind of data, I'm going to start looking at dex.vision. This is the same graph you get on Staker, staker.app, right? If you haven't heard of staker.app, it's essentially a mobile app for staking and keeping track of your stakes. I'm doing a terrible job at selling it, so I'll stop, right? But there was a few other things I wanted to look at, right? Notice this. This is your ROI since December 17th, 2019, essentially when we start getting our first price data for HEX, when it started being traded on Uniswap, okay? So the reason I'm bringing this up is because there are clearly periods where Ethereum is crushing the market, like right now. We're almost at 3,300. Mind you, it's not a big deal for a large cap coin like Ethereum to be moving these insane amounts. It takes a lot of capital, a lot of dollars, a lot of economic energy to move something like Ethereum relative to HEX. So it's impressive, to say the least. And the reason I'm bringing this up, obviously, because HEX is built on Ethereum. Not only that, it's a major liquidity pair, not the main anymore, but it is a major liquidity pair. And oftentimes you see the Ethereum guys denominate their wealth in Ether, right? Most of us may denominate it in dollars. If you're a Bitcoin maxi, you might denominate your wealth in Bitcoin. But I do know there are plenty of Ether maxis out there. And not only that, right? Maybe you're just trying to accumulate Ether because you think that it's safer, less volatile than something like HEX, just because it's higher market cap. So it would make sense if you're kind of taking profits into Ether. I just know that's a common thing. This is why I'm bringing this up. And if you're going to do something like that, keep in mind that you do have some sort of oscillatory movement between HEX and the Ethereum price. So even though this is ROI, this is to normalize the scales, right? Otherwise, they'd be on different scales. So scaled relative to each other, HEX ROI, Ethereum ROI, since HEX started being traded on Uniswap. Here we go. Notice that oftentimes, a few times, we have an uptrend in Ethereum here. However, we have, and I've mentioned this in a prior video, look at what HEX does here. It has sort of a blow off top or top of a rally and then bubble pop, right? 60 to 80% dip. I believe this was our 70 something percent dip. Let's actually do it, because I don't like saying, you know, I think it was this, but let's actually check. Day in price range, boom, boom, 72.5% dip, okay? That was this. And in the same amount of time, right, look at what Ethereum did. 1.6 or so ROI to 1.8. So could you have taken profits into Ethereum when things got overheated here and then bought in even lower later? Now, I know this is more so the trading mentality, trying to time the markets, but notice that we're looking at a long-term time frame and noticing these larger term cycles between HEX and Ethereum. We're not here for the day-to-day flips, the day-to-day trading on the second chart, the minute chart, and all of that stuff. Like, bots will destroy you if you're trading on low time frames. Right? Arbitrage bots, all that stuff. But I did want to point this out, that if you had taken profits from your HEX into Ether around February 7th or so, I think this might be offset by a few days. If you'd taken profit here and bought back over here, you would have gotten 2.5x more HEX. Not only that, if you've taken profit into Ether, notice the Ether ROI went from about 1.6 to about 1.8 or so. So you'd have about 20% more buying power, and then you'd be able to buy, 2.5x more or so. So at the end of the day, you could have bought three times more HEX if you had just taken profits into Ethereum and rode that for a month, literally, like just a month. So I just find that interesting. Again, I'm not saying, hey, you should take profits into HEX when it gets overheated and go into Ether instead of something like USDC, because at the end of the day, the bull market will be over, so stable coins will be king, and taking profits into Ethereum will not be the best idea by the time the bear market hits. It's as simple as that. But in the meantime, while we're still in this bull market, in my opinion, I don't think it's over. Again, that's just my opinion. None of this is financial advice, your generic disclaimer for this video. I do think it's interesting to note. Notice again, May 7th peak on HEX, 32x ROI from December 17th. But notice again that in the time where Ethereum is going up, HEX has this sort of mini bubble. Not even mini, it was kind of quite the bubble. But same amount of time, you see, or similarly, you see Ethereum from, let's say, late April, let's say it was a 2x, all the way to, say, September, about 4.7x. So in the time where, let's actually look at, let's see, April 26th, right? Where was HEX April 26th? So even if you've taken profit here before the local top, right? If you've taken profit on HEX April 26th, you would have missed out on the remaining 2x on HEX, right? But if you'd taken profit into Ether, then April 26th, we were at a 2x. And then let's say you bought back in on your HEX. Let me see, where's April 26th? About 12, 13x. And let's say you bought back in September. Mid-September, early mid-September. Then you would be up about 2.3x on your Ether and be able to buy the same amount of HEX, essentially, because you had this, again, this sort of bubble, and then it comes back down to retest that zone. So there have been times in the past. Over here, it was from February to March or so, about a month. And in this occasion over here, it was approximately late April to mid-September. So February to March, historically, Ether was a better play than HEX. May to September, historically, Ether was a better play than HEX. And once again, from October to November, Ethereum goes up pretty much 1.5x. October 15th to November, HEX actually dumped, right? If you look at just, let's say, October 15th, if you had bought, and let's say you didn't take profits out the bubble, but you'd rather, what am I trying to get at here? It's the same idea, right? That Ethereum goes up, right? Ethereum went up 3x in this period of time from, let's say September 30th to November 26th. It went up about a 3x or so. What did HEX do from September 30th? Let's say 20x to late November. about a 21x, right? So in theory, you could have 3x'd your USD value just by holding Ether and bought back in more HEX. So we've seen 3 times where you could have anywhere from doubled to tripled your HEX just by being in Ether for like a month, right? February to March, May to September, and then the last one we looked at was sort of a, October to November. And so you see this kind of repeating pattern, and it's not to say that it's, it's gonna happen, but I think it's interesting. And so where are we now, right? Let's look at where we are now. Well, we're a little correlated more or less, and I don't see the same pattern playing out as we speak. Unless you look at kind of this mini one from, late March to late April. Could have bought the same amount of HEX. Late March, late April, you could have almost 2x'd your USD value in ETH. So sure, there was this this mini period again. I guess you could consider it analogous to this February to March region, sort of this Q2 early spring. This was more so again late Q2 early spring, where Ether outperformed HEX. But now could we be in this area right here? I think we might potentially be in the point in time where we see a fractal like this, where we see HEX outperform Ethereum. So a little more of a messy, just naked eye analysis, but I might think of a way to model this a bit better, so I don't confuse you guys. But this is getting to be a longer video. I do want to respect your time here. But let's go ahead and take a look at one more thing I wanted to point out, okay? And that is the fact that we've closed our highest monthly candle ever. And I know I pointed this out in the previous video, in the monthly video, but we are now printing our highest monthly candle ever, and look at where exactly we're printing it. Right, we broke this resistance of about 1.8 pennies, broke above it, so it looks like clear skies. If you look at we're on the V1 chart. If you look at the weekly chart, well then this was our prior all-time high on the candles, and notice where we are now. This current candle is seeming to hold it as support. So we held this level of about 2 pennies as resistance once, twice, 3 times, and we could potentially be holding it as support. So again, these higher time frames, weekly, monthly, are way more significant than a lower time frame, okay? And last but not least, our daily time frame. If we take a look at the highest candle we ever closed, well then we are approaching it. It's at around the 2.2 pennies or so. This is V1, so let's look at V2 as well as dex.vision and look at the discrepancy. Right, so around the 2.15 penny region or so. Again, we're fast approaching. And last one over here, 2.13 pennies or so, fast approaching. So we are coming up to test prior levels of resistance, prior all-time highs. Exciting times, in my opinion. Just especially notice how how long did it take to drop from here to here? This is what I'm trying to get at over here. We wiped out 19 days of bleed in like 4 days. So think about that. It took 19 days to dip from over 2 pennies to, about 1.37 pennies. 19 days, almost 3 weeks, and in less than a week, in just a few days, we recovered all of those losses. I mean, this smells to me like a V-shaped recovery, and all you really have to do to double check is, zoom out to the weekly chart and notice the size of the wicks down here. So again, just wanted to point that stuff out, the dance between HEX and Ethereum, the fact that Ethereum is crushing the market right now, so I don't want to just completely ignore that for some of you guys who might be the type to take profits into Ether versus something like USDC. Okay, so just to wrap up this video, where are we on our exponential regression rainbow? Well, goddamn, it looks like we bounced right off of our support, which we've been talking about forever. So congrats if you picked up the dip. If you didn't, well, you know what? Things still look good. So I don't know. None of this is ever financial advice, but if you watch the videos, you know what's up, right? So where are we now is we're in our, 2.1 cent region or so. The next band, if we were to reach it, let's say, what day is today? May 3rd. Let's say we were to reach this band in like a week or so. It's sitting at 3 pennies. So similar to over here in the past where we accumulated between orange and yellow. I've talked about this plenty of times. Had a local peak in green and then consolidated around yellow before our major move. Similar over here, right? Consolidating between red and orange, so one band lower. Had a local peak to the yellow, so one band lower. And could we see oscillation accumulation around one band lower, so around the orange, before we actually pop off? Potentially, that would imply seeing reaccumulation, or rather sideways kind of non-volatile movement in the 3 to 4 penny range for the next month or so. And then could we see, a summer blow off top into the, if we drop a band, then 55 cents in July. If we drop 2 bands, 30 cents in July. Either way, we're looking at potentially 10, 20, 30x from here. I wouldn't be surprised because we've seen bigger moves in the past, right? So with that said, leave a thumbs up if you enjoy this kind of content, hybrid quantitative technical analysis. Subscribe because it's the end of the video. So what are you doing? If you're still watching, make sure you're subscribed, all right, man? And with that said, I'll catch you in the next video. Final update on the website. I found a resource. I found a really good resource to actually build a cool little dashboard for you guys, which would include some of these graphs in real time. And all you would have to do is go to the website and it'd be there. So currently working on that. It's looking very promising. Finally have tangible tools that I'm using. And also shout out to the community. Someone hooked me up with a really good domain name, so the actual website name. So with that said, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Like, subscribe. Peace.